What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome in the Minnesota Vikings Now. My name is Patrick Siepman, and I will be your host for today's show. And on today's show, we got two interesting topics that we're going to be diving into. The first topic being all about Lewis Cine. Bleacher Report put out an article about just some guys to watch at the upcoming training camp period, and they focused on Lewis Cine for the Minnesota Vikings, so we'll be diving into him. And then also, Bill Barnwell from ESPN put out an article ranking the top weapons in the league, and I'll kind of dive into where the Vikings land on that list and whether I think they're too low, too high, and all that and more. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, help us reach our like goal. I'm trying to hit 200 likes on today's video. I'm trying to show my bosses that Vikings fans, they are loud, they are proud. So if you sip that purple Kool-Aid and you bleed purple, just go down there, hit that like button before we get into the rest of today's show. But now, is Lewis Cine primed to break out for the Minnesota Vikings? Obviously, we know he dealt with that compound leg fracture injury in London versus the New Orleans Saints last season. And Bleacher Report put out an article saying that you should watch out for Lewis Cine at Minnesota Vikings training camp. But this is what they specifically said. It was Christopher Knox who wrote this article. He said, the Minnesota Vikings used the 32nd overall pick in last year's draft on former Georgia safety Lewis Cine. However, the 23-year-old has had his inaugural campaign cut short by a compound leg fracture that required 2 surgeries. And he wasn't much of a defensive factor before that. Cine appeared in 3 games before the Week 4 injury and logged a mere 2 defensive snaps. However, Cine appears to be recovering well and could be back to 100% by the start of training camp. I think overall, Cine, my prediction, I think he's going to thrive this upcoming season. And it's great to hear that he should be 100% by Vikings training camp. You know, the initial report after the injury happened, they said it could take a full 12 months for him to recover. Turns out he's going to be ready in about 8 to 9 months and ready for that August Vikings training camp period. I think this is going to be a huge addition, just not only for the secondary for the Vikings, but just for the overall defense. I think his versatility will fit in very well with Brian Flores and what he likes to do. And I think adding a guy like Lewis Cine, I mean, this is going to be awesome. Like, Lewis Cine is one of the better kind of prospects that have kind of not really been tapped in potential-wise. He's kind of one of the more unknown guys in the league. But if you remember how good he was back in his days at Georgia, I mean, he filled the stat sheet. And the thing I love about Lewis Cine, especially from his Georgia days, was he could play multiple positions on defense. We've seen him in kind of that deep safety look. We've seen him hop up in the box and play more of a box safety role. And then even at Georgia, we've seen him kind of hop in that nickel corner position and man up on slot wide receivers. And then they also had him manned up on linebackers as well. But his college career stats, 144 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. He's always been great in the run game. 2 interceptions and 14 pass breakups for the Georgia Bulldogs. And we know this. Versatility kills in the Brian Flores system. I've been saying versatility over and over again this offseason anytime I'm talking about Brian Flores' defense. And I think Lewis Cine, I think that's him. That is him to a T, is versatility. It was funny when Kwesi drafted Lewis Cine 2 drafts ago, we didn't even have Brian Flores yet, but it seems like if you were going to take like a prospect or whoever it may be from that draft, I would hope that Brian Flores would be his defensive coordinator, and it ended up working out like that. I expect Lewis Cine to be all over the field for the Vikes. If you guys remember how we used Harrison Smith under the Mike Zimmer defense, where you would see him in the box, you would see him coming off the edge, just using him in a number of different ways, just to kind of keep the offense on his toes a little bit. I expect the same for Lewis Cine and the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming year. I'm super excited to watch him play, and the number one thing I love about Lewis Cine, the dude hits. And I can't wait to see him knock somebody's head off coming over the middle of the field. Hopefully it's a Green Bay Packer or a Chicago Bear for his first big-time hit. But I'm excited to watch Lewis Cine play. And if you guys are too, show him some love down in the comments section. Type his jersey number 6. All the reports that we've heard about this guy is that he's a hard worker. He loves the Vikings. And overall, I'm just excited to watch him play football. So show him some love, show him some support, and type 6 in the comments section. Next, coming up, we're going to be diving into that ESPN article that I teased at the top of today's show, where they ranked the weapons in the National Football League, and I'll dive into where the Vikings landed on that. But, guys, before we get into that, 4th of July is just around the corner, and if you guys want to get your Vikings 4th of July day gear, hit that link right there, chatsports.com/VikingsUSA. I'll make sure this link is clickable in the comments and the description of today's video. Honestly, I think these shirts are pretty sweet. They're super kind of just, I think they're just sleek. I think these are sweet shirts. So I'm going to probably get one, and I think you should too. Head to chatsports.com/VikingsUSA. So ESPN, going off past years first, kind of diving into this article a little bit. So in 2021, the Vikings ranked 5th in weapons. 2022, they ranked in 4th. And then this upcoming year, they rank in 6th. And they do this by a combination of running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And the Vikings have always had weapons throughout their history. Like, this has never been a shocker to me to find out that they've been top 6 over the past 3 seasons. It's always been the other things that have kind of left the Vikings short to accomplishing their goals. But even dating back to Chris Carter, Randy Moss, to Diggs and Thielen. Then we had Jefferson and Thielen, and now we have Jefferson and Addison. The Vikings have always had weapons. And starting with the wide receiver group here, I think this is an absolutely loaded room. You have the number 1 wide receiver in the league in Jefferson, and then you have, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the 2023 NFL draft in Jordan Addison. I think Jefferson and Addison are going to complement each other extremely well. But then even a guy like KJ Osborne at wide receiver 3, like, he is one of the better third options at the receiver position in the whole NFL. But then even got like sleepers, like a guy like Jalen Naylor, who I also am a huge fan of. I think if you're talking wide receivers in the league, the Vikings have to be top 5. But now let's shift to the tight end room. I legitimately think the Vikings have the best tight end room in the league for 2 reasons: TJ Hockenson and Josh Oliver. I think TJ Hockenson is one of the better receiving tight ends in the league, and we know Josh Oliver is the best run blocking tight end in the NFL, and all the reports coming out from Vikings minicamp a couple weeks ago now, he has been dominating. He is living up to the hype as being an elite run blocker, so I can't wait for when the Vikings run these 2 tight end sets. They're going to be able to really keep defenses on their toes and on their heels a little bit when you're running this play action, because you got Josh Oliver. If he's in the game, you're assuming run, and if TJ Hawkinson's in the game, you're assuming pass. You put them on the field at the same time, you're going to really keep defenses guessing. But the negative with the Vikings was the running back room, and this is what Bill Barnwell had to say. This is the reason why he left them off the top 5. He said running back is also less of a strength than it was a year ago after the Vikings cut Dalvin Cook. It's true. Cook's rushing efficiency declined dramatically last season, but he had generally been an above average to very good back before 2022. The release pushes Alexander Mattison into a leading role, and Mattison wasn't good last year either. He averaged 3.8 yards per carry, didn't do much as a receiver, and averaged minus 0.6 rushing yards over expected per carry. Cook was at minus 0.01. The concerns at running back are enough to keep Minnesota out of the top 5. And I understand Bill Barnwell's overarching point about the Vikings running back room not really having that star or that superstar player. But you look at guys like Ty Chandler, you look at guys like Kene Wonger, you look at guys like Dwayne McBride. Those are the unknown pieces and the unknown running backs in this Minnesota Vikings running back room, which I think if we're looking back on this season when we're sitting there preparing for, the 2024 NFL draft, I think we're going to say, you know what, we got a ton of dogs in that room, including a guy like Ty Chandler, Dwayne McBride, or Kene Wonger. And that's why I trust the Vikings running back room. I trust this Vikings rushing attack. The Vikings were 26 in rushing this past season. I expect them to at least be in the top 15. I think with getting the addition of Josh Oliver, re-signing C.J. Ham, I think we're going to see a lot more powerhouse football. And listen, Dalvin Cook, he was great for the Minnesota Vikings throughout his career. But we really saw last year, it was either boom or bust. It was either a home run or a strikeout with Dalvin. There was really no in-between. And I think Alexander Mattison, if you give him that bulk of the kind of workload and you mix in a Ty Chandler or a Kene Wonger or a Dwayne McBride, I just think overall the legs will be fresher, and I just think the Vikings rushing attack will just be better overall. That's why I'm excited to see these guys play. And keep your eyes out for preseason, because I'm very curious to see kind of what Kevin O'Connell does with Ty Chandler, Dwayne McBride, and Kene Wonger, who gets the lead touches at that RB2 spot. I think they're probably going to lean Ty Chandler, but who knows? I mean, Dwayne McBride apparently has been balling out at Minnesota Vikings minicamp, and the coaching staff has been raving about him. I mean, he ran for over 1,700 yards in his senior year at UAB with over 7.4 yards per carry. I think the Vikings have a lot of unknown names in this running back room, and and I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. But I ask you guys, what is your confidence in the Vikings running back room heading into next season? Scale it 1 through 10. I'm honestly sitting here at a 9. I really have no worries about this, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you for the support on the channel as of recently. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Stay in the loop with Vikings training camp coming up in just over a month from now. We'll be your one-stop shop for all news, rumors around your favorite team, the Minnesota Vikings. So hit that subscribe button. And as always, Skol Vikes.